While most people think that being a celebrity is always glamorous and fun, the opposite is often true. Some celebrities have been targeted by conspiracy theorists who claim that they're part of a reptilian race, that they've been cloned, or that they faked their own passing, and these rumors often have a lasting negative impact. Leah Michelle's career as an actress and singer started when she was still young. She appeared in Broadway productions of Les Miserables and Fiddler on the Roof, and would eventually achieve worldwide stardom when she appeared in the hugely famous TV musical Glee. She's also appeared in the 2011 movie New Year's Eve, and in 2012, she released her first single entitled Cannonball. A full-length album named Louder followed that, and since then she's amassed a large following of fans. But as with many other celebrities, she became the subject of a conspiracy theory, in which people believe that she never learned to read, and it's even spawned an internet meme that's been shared far and wide. It's believed that the theory came about in 2017, thanks to a different celebrity who'd written about Leah in her memoir, which ended up in the hands of the hosts of One More Thing podcast, Jay Hunt and Robert Ackerman. During this particular episode of the podcast, Hunt and Ackerman were reading excerpts from the memoirs of Naya Rivera, which is called Sorry Not Sorry: Dreams, Mistakes, and Growing Up. Rivera had also worked on Glee during her career, acting in a starring role from 2009 to 2015. But even before appearing in the massively popular show, she was no stranger to the spotlight. She'd acted in TV commercials while still a child, and in 1991, she made her first big break when she landed a role in the sitcom The Royal Family, and her performance led to her being nominated for a Young Artist Award. In her memoirs, Hunt and Ackerman noticed that she made comments about Leah, specifically that she used to refuse to improvise any lines while working on the set of Glee. This resulted in a lot of speculation from the pair, who did their best to figure out why she would do this. At one point, she suggested that she may have missed a lot of school since she was a child star, and possibly didn't learn to read as well as most of us do. They suggested that someone may have had to read her lines to her so that she could memorize them, and in doing so managed to hide the fact that she couldn't actually read. They then started scouring the internet for proof that she's illiterate, but they also theorized that she might employ a team of assistants who write her social media posts on her behalf, specifically on Instagram. They also wondered if she signed her own autograph during fan meetups, and whether the Glee co-creator, Ryan Murphy, knew about her secret. They speculated that if this was the case, Leah was able to learn her lines from pre-recorded versions of the songs that were performed on the show. This led to a slew of conspiracy theories about Leah's ability to read. Some fans claim to have found footage of her during award shows, where she appears to let her co-presenter read the winner's name from the card before she announces it. Others stated that they found footage of her signing autographs, but upon closer inspection, they noticed that the pen she was using didn't actually touch the paper. During an interview with the New York Times, she stated that she knew all of her lines every day while working on Glee. But since she didn't outright state that she learned them by herself, this theory only grew further. Leah has taken these rumors in her stride and has been seen joking about the meme that resulted, but she's also added that if she were a man, this theory would likely have never even seen the light of day. It's remarkable how often it happens that someone starts a rumor that a celebrity has passed away, only for it to be revealed that this isn't the case. Usually, the news results in hundreds or thousands of social media posts from fans expressing their remorse over their passing. This typically happens a few times every year, and it then comes as a shock to everyone involved when it's revealed that the celebrity hasn't actually passed away, isn't gravely ill, and is doing just fine. It's always a mystery as to how these rumors start. It may be that someone was just having a bit of fun at the celebrity's expense, or they misheard a name given during a newscast, but usually the root of the rumor is never discovered. Some celebrities that have been rumored to have passed away include Sir Paul McCartney, who on one occasion told a BBC reporter that if people thought he had passed away, they were simply wrong, since he was alive and well and living in Scotland. Another is Sean Connery, who made an appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman to assure his fans that he hadn't passed away. It's thought that these rumors started when one of Connery's friends, race driver James Hunt, passed away, and since they were known to be friends, some people speculated that he'd also lost his life. Tom Cruise found out in 2010 that people thought he was no longer alive. Rumors started to spread that he'd passed away during a plumbing accident, but he was quick to quell these theories and even joked that what we see on screen is actually a hologram. Matt Damon stated that when a news story appeared in a newspaper reporting that he had passed, his wife merely stated, "Well, that's weird," and the rest of the family joked along at the absurdity of the claim. Rumors that comedian and actor Jamie Foxx had passed away had an extra factor to it, though, when people started speculating that he'd not only lost his life, but had also been replaced by a clone. During the filming of the movie Back in Action, Foxx had to be rushed to a hospital when he suffered a medical emergency. The nature of the emergency has never been revealed, but for reasons unknown, someone then started the rumor that he'd passed away. He would later reveal that during the emergency, he suddenly found that he couldn't walk, and hence had to be taken to an emergency room, but reiterated that he'd made a full recovery despite being worried that he would suffer lasting effects from what had happened. During an awards ceremony, he assured his fans that he had not been cloned, and stated that he'd been through some things but emerged all the stronger on the other side. He added that he had a newfound respect for life and that he now had a new appreciation for his art. It truly is a mystery as to how these rumors get started. If they're started maliciously, surely that person would be aware of the fact that when the truth comes out, they'll look foolish, and if done in error, where did that person get the false information from? The Kardashian family must be one of the most famous on the planet. While there are many people who consider them to be fake or obsessed with fame and money, there are even more who follow their daily comings and goings almost obsessively. Though this does come with a downside. Life in the spotlight usually involves having much of your life exposed to the public, and this often results in false rumors being spread at some point, or conspiracy theories that simply aren't true being spread. Since the Kardashians are an entire family of famous people, it was probably only a matter of time before one of these conspiracies reared its ugly head, and in this instance it involved one of the sisters, Khloe. At some point, a rumor started that she was the daughter of O.J. Simpson, and that she was born as the result of an affair between him and Kris Jenner, who is of course Khloe's mother. Jenner was also the best friend of Nicole Brown Simpson, who most people believe lost her life at the hands of Simpson, who was later acquitted of the crime. As soon as the rumor saw the light of day, Khloe, Jenner, and Simpson were quick to respond that they were by no means true. But when Jenner stated in an interview that she had indeed had an affair with someone while she was married to Robert Kardashian, the theory suddenly sprang back to life, even though she didn't mention who the other person was. People pointed out that Robert served as O.J. Simpson's defense attorney during his trial, and speculated that he would have spent a lot of time with the family in the period before the trial started and while it was ongoing. In 2012, one of Robert's ex-wives, Jen Ashley, told a Star magazine reporter that he'd confided in her that Khloe wasn't his daughter. She stated that she didn't ask any further questions and hence never found out who her real father was. At one point, Khloe and Kris had a discussion about having a DNA test done so that the rumor could finally be put to rest for good. They both stated that the theory was a ridiculous one, but added that a DNA test would finally reveal the truth and stop people from talking about something they had no knowledge of. Kris's other children, Robert, Kim, and Courtney, all decided to have DNA tests done, but Khloe refused, stating she didn't care what rumors people wanted to spread about her, and she reiterated that she considers Robert to be her father, even if not in the traditional sense. She added that she didn't need someone else to tell her who she was, who her family was, or where she belonged. Many of her fans praised her stance and agreed that her heritage is no one's business but her own. As for Simpson, he appeared on a podcast called Full Send in 2022, and here he stated that he always thought that Kris was attractive, but that the rumor of them having an affair was completely untrue since he preferred to date supermodels. This seemed to stem the tide of the rumor, but it would surface again in 2024 when Simpson passed away after a battle with cancer. When Khloe posted to Instagram shortly after with a reel featuring Christopher Robin from Winnie the Pooh in the caption, "Healing begins with remembering," speculation started once again, though most people have opted to ignore it this time around. Keanu Reeves is seen as one of those actors that's rather polarizing, since moviegoers either think of him as a great actor, or one that they wouldn't go out of their way to see. Regardless of opinions, he's one of the most famous faces in Hollywood. He first became known to movie audiences when he was starring in the comedy film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, in which he and a friend travel through time, visiting different eras in history in order to pass a history test, thereby saving Reeves's character from being sent to military school. They're periodically joined by a time traveler played by George Carlin, who guides them throughout the movie, and in the end, their band, called the Wild Stallions, provides the basis for our future society to live together peacefully. Reeves has fans all over the world, not only because of his choice of acting roles and his acting ability, but also because of his good looks. In fact, some people have stated that he's a little too good looking for his age, since he's 59 years old and clearly looks after himself. This has given rise to some strange theories on the internet, the most prominent being that he must be immortal. As soon as the theory arose, people started looking for evidence that he really is immortal, and a few have claimed that they found some. One futurist named Dr. Richard Hames speculates that Reeves has had several different identities throughout history, and that Keanu is just the latest in a long line of names that he's used in the past. He's added that he's been seen as far back as 700 AD, and that he was the one who founded the Holy Roman Empire when he lived as Charles the Great, who lived around 747 to 814 AD. As proof, he's referred to paintings of Charles the Great that bear a striking resemblance to the actor. Furthermore, when Charles passed away, shortly after naming his son as his successor, he was quickly buried, which historians find strange. Hames speculates that this was merely a ruse that gave Reeves enough time to leave and start a new life somewhere else. Then there are the claims that this isn't the first instance where Reeves decided to pursue an acting career. Actor Paul Monet lived from 1847 to 1922, and he too bears a striking resemblance to Reeves. Though it's known that he passed away from a heart condition, it's said that his body was never found, and conspiracy theorists think this is because he never really passed, but chose to once again start a new life in a new era. At one point, this strange theory was brought to Reeves's attention during an appearance on The Jimmy Fallon Show, and he neither confirmed nor denied these claims, merely stating, "We're all stardust, baby." When shown portraits of himself during his supposed previous lives, he confirmed that they do indeed look a lot like him, and even pointed out which of the features he found the most similar. In 2014, he made a comment that only fanned the flames of the theory. When asked whether it was true that he gave a lot of his money to people who worked on the Matrix films, he stated that he doesn't think about money often, since he could easily live for the next few centuries on the money that he's already earned. There's no doubt that Reeves's beard is a little more gray these days than it used to be, but conspiracy theorists believe that this is just a ruse. His face hasn't seemed to age at all. Hames added that the scientific community has done a lot of work as far as extending human life is concerned. He lists cryogenics as a way that Reeves may be able to live through several centuries. But there's a more disturbing theory that has surfaced in the past few years. Some people believe that he's a vampire that has managed to avoid detection for centuries, and they find it ironic that he appeared in the famous movie called Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is based on Stoker's novel. Actress Jennifer Lawrence first made a big breakthrough in the film industry when she appeared in a movie called Winter's Bone, in which she played the character of a woman named Ree. She then furthered her career in popularity when she landed the role of Mystique in X-Men First Class, which turned out to be one of moviegoers' favorite movies of 2011. She had landed a few smaller roles before that, most notably appearing on The Bill Engvall Show, in which she played Bill's daughter. Following her success in her first X-Men movie, she appeared in 3 more films in the franchise, but she became a household name when she played the role of Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games franchise, which is still considered by some fans to be her greatest ever performance. Lawrence won her first Academy Award in 2013 when she was just 22 years old, receiving the award for Best Actress for her role in the film Silver Linings Playbook. She's since gone on to win 3 more, including 2 more Best Actress awards and 1 for Best Supporting Actress. She's had a rewarding and impressive career so far, but some of her fans think she may be acting, even when not in front of the cameras. When it was announced that she'd won her first Oscar, Lawrence started making her way to the stage to accept her trophy, but then something strange happened. As she walked up the stairs that led to the stage, she stumbled and fell. Something that isn't unheard of, but would still have been rather embarrassing, especially in front of a crowd of distinguished actors. The incident was seen as a mere accident by most people, but others weren't so sure. They believed the manner in which she fell didn't seem normal, and that it may have been planned beforehand. Most people were quick to dismiss this strange theory, but when the same thing happened again at the Oscars ceremony the following year, the rumors started up once more, since it seemed very unlikely she would fall in the same set of circumstances 2 years in a row. People started suggesting that she was faking the falls for attention, but given that she's an A-list actress, others have refuted these claims, since she's already famous and doesn't need to look for extra attention. But then, at the premiere of The Hunger Games, one of her shoes seemingly got stuck in the hem of her dress, and once again, she fell, though this time she was surrounded by her entourage. The footage of the fall was scrutinized by many on the internet, who found it suspicious that the cameras panned away as soon as she started to fall, and again it was suggested that she had faked her tumble. Lawrence has since addressed these claims, stating that she found the falls very embarrassing, but they were made all the worse when she learned that people were suggesting she'd fallen on purpose. She added that before her first Oscar win, she refused to write an acceptance speech, since she's superstitious and didn't want to jinx her chances. When her name was called as the winner, she was excited to make it to the stage, but when she fell, she became exceedingly embarrassed and found the resulting comments devastating. Despite these comments, Lawrence continues to enjoy a fruitful career, and only time will tell if another fall is in the cards in the future. Most popular music fans will be familiar with Beyonce's music. She's known as an R&B and soul singer and has sold millions of records worldwide, and she's married to another well-known singer, Jay-Z. While hardcore fans will be familiar with most of her work, her two most famous songs are undoubtedly Halo and Single Ladies, which were both released in 2008. She's now known as a solo artist, but this wasn't always the case. Early in her singing career, she was part of an all-girls group called Girls Time, along with Kelly Rowland, who was one of her best friends. The group would appear on a variety TV show called Star Search in 1993, but they were unable to win the cash prize. 2 years later, Matthew Knowles started managing the group full-time, and he made the decision to continue as a smaller group of just 4 singers. Following this, they also decided to change the name of the group to Destiny's Child, with Beyonce serving as the lead singer. The group would see a massive amount of success until 2006, when they decided to go their separate ways. By this time, she'd made her first appearance in a movie that was entitled Carmen, a hip-hop opera, and her first solo album, Dangerously in Love, had also been released. She married Jay-Z in 2008, the same year that her third album was released. She's since been named one of Time magazine's most influential people of 2014, and the following year, she became the Grammy Awards' most nominated female artist. In 2023, she presented the second highest grossing tour ever by a female artist, raking it as much as $580 million. But she is still the subject of a conspiracy theory that claims that she and Jay-Z belong to the supposed secret organization called the Illuminati. Some fans and conspiracy theorists believe she buries secret messages in the lyrics of her songs. They also claim that she's helping establish a new world order, which she is slowly achieving by brainwashing her fans with her hidden messages. The theory that she and her husband belong to this secret organization was only further bolstered by the fact that Jay-Z is known to use a certain hand signal in the shape of a triangle during some of his performances. They were quick to point out that she also uses the same signal at times, but others were quick to suggest that she merely does so in homage to her husband while they are apart. But conspiracy theorists are adamant that the signal is supposed to represent the Eye of Providence, that's said to be used by the Freemasons and the Illuminati. Luckily, more level-headed fans are aware that not every small detail has some sinister significance, and they've urged other listeners to just enjoy her music for what it is, an art form that brings joy to millions of people around the world. Beyonce once made a tongue-in-cheek reference to these claims in one of her songs, which is called Formation. The lyrics in that song read, "Y'all haters corny with that Illuminati mess," revealing that she isn't a fan of the theory. Recently, some people have suggested that she's actually not American but Italian. They claim that she's a descendant of a bloodline of Illuminati members, and hence should be seen as a dangerous threat to our normal way of living. The singer finds these claims laughable and will likely continue to ignore them. Steve Jobs will need no introduction to most tech-savvy people. He made a name for himself as the CEO of Apple Computer Inc., having returned to that post in 1997 after leaving the corporation in 1985, following a power struggle within the company. Not many people are aware, though, that he was adopted as a baby and that his biological father was Syrian. One condition of his adoption set out by his parents was that he had to be adopted by two people who had graduated from college. They were shocked to learn that neither of his adopted parents had in fact finished college, but they allowed the adoption to continue when they were assured that he would be sent to college upon graduating high school. Ironically, he would attend just one semester at Reed College in Oregon, but would go on to see unthinkable success in the tech industry, despite hating structured education, which he saw as a waste of time. It's also known that he swindled one of his friends and co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, out of money when they were younger. After they'd created a game called Breakout for the Atari gaming system, the pair was paid a total of $5,000, but Jobs told Wozniak that they'd only received $700, half of which was given to Wozniak, and Steve kept the rest. Many people have been critical of Jobs, especially after he made the controversial decision to cut the company's philanthropic programs while Apple was still in its infancy. At the time, he assured everyone that the programs would be reinstated once the company was more financially stable, but this never happened. Many of his coworkers and employees have also stated that he was difficult to work with, since he had somewhat of a large ego and was seen as overly demanding. In fact, he was once voted as one of America's toughest bosses to work for. Sadly, Jobs passed away on the 5th of October 2011, and today he's remembered as a man who made a massive difference in the tech industry. But there are some conspiracy theorists who believe that he is still alive. This theory originated thanks to a photo that was uploaded to Facebook after being taken at an outdoor cafe in Egypt in 2019. The photo showed a man sitting at one of the tables in the cafe, and people were quick to point out that he seemed to be the spitting image of Jobs. This gave rise to theories that Jobs faked his own passing, and since it was known that his father was Syrian, many people thought the theory was quite plausible. Others pointed out that the man in the photo seemed to be sitting the same way Jobs used to, while others joked that if it really was him, he would have been wearing an Apple Watch. Some stated that Jobs was known to be somewhat of a maverick, and that if anyone would try to fake their own passing, Jobs would be a likely candidate. Others thought that he may have relocated to Egypt, since they believed he had a love for that country and would find spirituality there that would aid his need to escape from his former busy lifestyle. Furthermore, the man in the photo seems to be barefoot, and since Jobs was known to be in the habit of taking off his shoes during brainstorming sessions, some people took this as proof that he was still alive and enjoying a new carefree life. The famous pop singer Taylor Swift is no stranger to conspiracy theories. At one point, it was suggested that she was an agent of a psychological operation that was being conducted by the American government, and that they'd conditioned her specifically to fulfill this role. They claimed that their agenda was to convince people through hidden messages in her song lyrics to vote for the Democratic Party. Some have even suggested that she has ties to the Pentagon. Political commentator Jesse Waters once claimed that the Pentagon's PSYOP unit suggested to NATO that Swift be used as an asset in their efforts to stop the spread of misinformation online. But he later stated that he had no proof to back up these claims, and then stated that he and his colleagues were merely curious as to whether she really is a part of some secret government program. But there is one conspiracy theory surrounding Swift that has taken many by surprise. After people started noticing that she shared an uncanny resemblance to Zeena LaVey, the daughter of Anton LaVey, rumors started to swirl that they were related, and that Swift had ties to Satanism. Anton LaVey is known as the founder of the Church of Satan, and for many years, Zeena served as the church's high priestess. She eventually decided to abandon that post, however, and has since renounced the church, opting instead to follow Sethianism, which is linked to ancient Egyptian worship. She later revealed in an interview that everything she was taught by her father was a lie that she only uncovered after finding Seppianism. After noticing that the two women look alike, the internet started suggesting that Swift was the reincarnation of LaVey, which is absurd since both women are still very much alive. Realizing that this was a ridiculous claim to make, they then decided that she must be a clone of LaVey, but this was also seen as sensationalism. Strangely, there doesn't seem to be any proof to back this theory up, and all conspiracy theorists have to go on is that Swift looks a lot like LaVey did when she was younger. This hasn't stopped people from looking for evidence, though, and they've suggested that this proof lies in Swift's lyrics. They drew attention to some symbolism that was used in Swift's Bad Blood music video, along with the fact that the video shows her being reconstructed into either an immortal person or some kind of superhuman. Luckily, most of Swift's fans have taken these claims with a pinch of salt and consider them to be nothing but figments of conspiracy theorists' imaginations. And yet, theories persist, as they seem to re-emerge every few years. The truth is likely that the two women have no connection whatsoever, whether familial or by the creation of a clone, and they live very different lives, during which they're likely completely unaware of what the other one's doing. For more than 3 decades, actor Nicolas Cage has appeared in popular movies that have earned him somewhat of a cult following among his fans. His unique style of acting has set him apart from many of his peers, and he's seen as one of the modern era's best actors. But as with many other actors who use alternate titles, not many people know that Nicolas Cage isn't his real name. His actual birth name is Nicholas Kim Coppola, and many people are surprised when they learn that he's related to Francis Ford Coppola, the director of the hugely popular film The Godfather. He decided to change his name so that he could make a name for himself in the acting world, rather than relying on the reputation of his uncle, who was already seen as an accomplished director. He also revealed that he doesn't like being referred to as an actor, since he feels that this implies he's a good liar, and hence he prefers being called a thespian, though he has admitted that this may make him seem somewhat pompous and conceited. He has on several occasions stated that he would never retire, since he sees his work in cinema as his guardian angel, and that without it, he would feel completely lost. He feels that his health improves while he's working on a movie, and that movie making helps him feel positive about his life. He's also known to be somewhat eccentric, which is evidenced by the fact that he owns a burial site in the shape of a pyramid in New Orleans. It has the words "Everything from One" inscribed on it. He's the owner of a rare first edition Superman comic that's worth a whopping $150,000. He's bought a haunted mansion and is featured in a horror video game called Dead by Daylight, in which he plays a survivor who's attempting to escape a series of crazed villains. He's also the subject of a conspiracy theory, which claims that he was alive during the Civil War. One might imagine that if this was true, he would look a lot older, but theorists claim that he was able to keep his youthful looks since he's actually a vampire. This came about from a photo from the Civil War era that emerged online showing a man who looks an awful lot like Cage, and in no time, conspiracy theorists were having a field day. The photo was put up for auction on eBay by a man named Jack Mord, an antiques dealer. He added a caption to the photo which revealed that the man depicted was from Bristol in Tennessee, and that he lived there around 1870. He's certain that the man is in fact Nicolas Cage, and that it proves he's immortal. He believes Cage has lived for a very long time and has managed to go undetected since he reinvents himself every 75 years. He added that 150 years from now, Cage might take on the role of a politician, a cult leader, or maybe even a talk show host. As further proof, Mord states that Cage's looks have remained virtually unchanged since he appeared in the movie Moonstruck in 1987, though many people have pointed out that according to vampire law, it's impossible to photograph a vampire since they simply won't show up in the picture. Cage has since trashed this theory and stated that he finds it completely ridiculous, prompting people to joke that this is exactly what a vampire would say to avoid detection. Megan Fox has been hailed on many occasions as the world's most beautiful woman, though many feel this is up for debate. She was born in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where she enjoyed a modest upbringing. She knew from a young age that she wanted to become an actress, and after watching The Wizard of Oz when she was 5 years old, she insisted for the next year that everyone had to call her Dorothy. Her mother eventually told her that Dorothy was merely an actress playing a role in the film, and this revelation started her ambitions of wanting to act in film. But not many people are aware that she made an appearance in the 2003 movie Bad Boys 2, though she merely appeared as an extra. She's probably best known for her role in the Transformers movies that were released in 2007 and 2009 respectively. But she's revealed that her time on those sets wasn't ideal, since she and the director often argued. She likened him to Napoleon or Hitler, stating that he became impossible to work with on set, though when they stepped away from that environment they got along very well, since he then became very awkward. In response, the director called her classless and graceless, and Fox found it strange that no one came to her defense. She would later theorize that this was because she was a woman, and if she were a man, someone would have stood up for her. She told the media that her favorite movie that she ever worked on is Jennifer's Body, since it fit in perfectly with her life at the time, a factor that she considers as magical. Another fact that isn't known by many people is that she once received a ban from Walmart as a teenager after she was caught shoplifting cosmetics. The actress has a huge following of fans, but in April of 2024, she became the subject of a conspiracy theory after she uploaded a photo of herself without makeup to her social media accounts. While many of the usual celebrity-centered websites claimed that she looked unrecognizable in the photo, it was clear to see that it was in fact Fox, but many people were taken aback by the fact that she seemed to look as beautiful without makeup as she did when she was wearing it. This of course is easy to explain, since she likely doesn't completely rely on makeup to look good. But conspiracy theorists then decided that this is proof that something untoward was going on. And before long, rumors that this was actually a clone of Fox started making their way across social media platforms. Some people even started speculating that the photo wasn't actually real, but it had been created by AI, which is understandable since AI technology has made it hard in recent times to differentiate between actual photos and those that have been artificially generated. Others pointed to the fact that the woman in the photo has blue hair, but this was hardly seen as proof, since dyeing one's hair is a simple matter that takes less than an hour to complete, even when it's being done on very long hair. Others believe the theory since they believe she looks nothing like she did a decade ago, but fans have put this down to simple aging, or possibly that Fox has undergone plastic surgery at some point, which is often the norm in the world of Hollywood. In 2005, Avatar: The Last Airbender was televised for 3 seasons on Nickelodeon. The show is set in an Asian-influenced martial arts and elemental manipulation world. It follows the life of the main protagonist, Aang, and his friends. Together, they must save the world and defeat Fire Lord Ozai, putting an end to the destructive war. Aang is the incarnation of the Avatar, the spirit of the world that is manifested into a human form. The Avatar must restore balance among the nations. One intriguing theory proposed by a dedicated fan on the subreddit Fan Theories suggests that the show is actually set in a post-apocalyptic future. In this world, genetic engineering has run rampant, leading to the creation of bending, a form of martial arts that allows users to control the 4 elements. This combination allowed the people to take control of the elements and is even passed along to offspring. But not all humans can afford this kind of expensive treatment, which is why some non-bending humans are left in the world. These benders are dangerous, and so the government seizes its opportunity to make some walking bioweapons, establishing the Avatar program. This individual would be trained from birth to become more powerful than the others, with his nanites storing all the information from the past avatars that could be used in his prowess as a defensive mechanism. The genetic engineering aspect of the conspiracy theory also explains why so many strange animals are walking around. The usual animals were replaced by creatures that were a direct result of a society out of control with their gene slicing. At some point in this world, there was an apocalyptic event that eradicated all of the technological aspects, and the only remnant of that world was elemental bending. Further evidence for the post-apocalyptic theory can be found in the time gap between Avatar 1 and Avatar Aang. 1 was the first Avatar, who existed 10,000 years prior to Aang, but only a little has changed in society during this time. Supporting evidence for the idea that something went horribly wrong, resulting in the deformed animals and the loss of much of the technology, is that Korra lives in an advanced technological age, set just 70 years after Aang. Why didn't anything change between Wan and Aang in 10,000 years, but in just 70 years, there were some obvious futuristic advances? The apocalypse might be to blame. According to theorists, some apocalyptic event must have taken place to destroy technological infrastructure and mutate the animals. Other conspirators believe that the show may represent some real-world events. One of these events is the Second World War. Avatar opens with a long war as its backdrop, the 100 Years' War. The Fire Nation started it, and almost every other nation was involved. Entire people were wiped out, and the powerful nation showed clear technological advancements, which seems a bit familiar. Another historical parallel compares Amon to Joseph Stalin, the leader of the USSR. This leads to another theory that the 100 Years' War may have been a reference to the Cold War. Some theorists have also suggested that White Lotus Society could reference some very real-life societies. The White Lotus is a shadowy organization made up of veteran warriors who act alongside the Avatar, which some believe may relate to actual events that have occurred throughout history. Another odd conspiracy theory relating to the show is that it never occurred on Earth, but rather on a much smaller planet. Evidence supporting this idea is that the islands are very close together. A smaller planet may also mean less gravity, which is likely why the characters can jump as high as they do and maneuver gracefully in the air. This could also explain why such large animals like lion turtles, flying bison, and polar bear dogs are roaming the planet. In 1998, a fan-favorite cartoon series made its way onto Nickelodeon. Cat Dog aired for 3 seasons until 2005, depicting the life of Siamese twin brothers, half as a cat and the other half as a dog. The show follows the life of cat and dog, who are conjured twin hybrids who share the same body. They have no tail and no hind legs. Cat is the smarter of the two and is certainly a lot more cunning. He devises some evil plots to trick Dog into getting what he wants. One such instance was when he tried to make him smarter so that he could have more in common with him. Dog, on the other hand, is the happy-go-lucky type. He seems more naive out of the two of them. Winslow is another supporting character, a mouse who lives in a hole in the twins' house. Dog doesn't mind the mouse, but Cat and Winslow don't really get along. Another character is Rancid Rabbit, the show's antagonist, who hates the pair and tries to find ways to punish them or force them into working for him. The show itself was already rather bizarre before the conspiracy theories came into play. The first theory suggests that the characters are the result of a nuclear disaster. It needs to be explained how the two fused together, leaving viewers digging for answers and explanations. Fans had to fill in the gaps, resulting in a Chernobyl-like nuclear event. While this theory isn't the most logical, neither is conjoined cross-species. A Facebook user named Nick Montgomery offered this theory. He argued that the animals had been the result of a nuclear accident that infected the creatures with radiation and caused them to fuse together. He also explained that the mutation allows the infected animals' bodies to stretch in an unnatural way. This is shown in the fused cat and dog. But there are other clues as to why this may be the case, and that the animals lived in a post-apocalyptic backdrop. Nick refers to the urban deprivation that we see in the opening scenes and throughout the series. He also notes that the city is almost deserted, the streets are covered in trash, and many buildings seem as though they're not being lived in. He then points to a particular episode titled Workforce, in which the twins work at a factory that Rancid Rabbit owns. In this episode, the factory can be seen polluting waters by allowing green sludge to run into it. Regular health and safety protocols clearly don't apply to this area. Furthermore, Lola, the bird character who has an interest in zoology, isn't really an animal, but rather a human being in a hazardous material suit. This may also apply to the rabbit, his ears being the radio part of the suit. Evidence for this can be found in the fact that he has difficulty hearing and regularly speaks to himself. Lola isn't Cat Dog's neighbor by pure chance, but is intentionally living there to monitor this fused creature's lifestyle changes and survival skills. Rancid Rabbit also plays the part of town scavenger, who Montgomery believes is trying to profit from the disaster. This is supported by the work that he's engaged in, which is always trying to make money and control the Nuremberg citizens. While it is a conspiracy theory work in progress, It's maybe a convincing argument that answers at least two of the questions about the show. Why is Nürburg dilapidated and empty? And how did cat and dog become fused? The animated TV series called Doug premiered on Nickelodeon in 1991, along with Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy. The show follows the life of a 6th grader named Doug Funny. He moved to Bluffington with his family and their pet dog, Pork Chop. He made 2 friends in his new place, Skeeter Valentine and Patty Mayonnaise. There are many conspiracy theories centering around this character and the show as a whole. Some include that the boy is addicted to a narcotic, but the leading theory here paints Doug as someone who has a psychiatric issue. They attribute this idea to his daydreaming tendencies, which blur the lines between fantasy and reality. Doug is shown to have a rather overactive imagination and a superhero alter ego. He's living an imaginary life, which may explain why everyone is a different color in the show, such as yellow, purple, and green. One piece of supporting evidence for this theory can be found in the episode where he rides a bike into traffic during one of his delusions or fantasies. These daydreaming episodes are far too vivid to be a regular fantasy. Doug cannot separate reality from fantasy. On many occasions, his delusions often put him in some pretty risky situations, which some believe is the symptom of something that requires a medical diagnosis. Another conspiracy states that all of the events that take place in the cartoon are nothing more than the manifestation of the boy's imagined narratives that he's writing in his journal. Doug is writing his own story, in which he's the main character, the superhero named Quail Man. An alternate theory suggests that both the boy and his sister Judy take a kind of substance that makes them act strangely, which makes Judy act out violently towards her brother, especially when she wants to keep him out of her room. Then we have the conspiracy theories that bridge the gaps between cartoons and adult shows. One Reddit user came to suggest that Doug is the young version of JD from Scrubs. JD and Doug both daydream to the extreme, and none of their family or friends prevent them from doing this. The two share the fear of failure, and even keep a diary or journal. Both of the characters regularly self-sabotage their love life. Cartoon Justice, a Reddit user who produced this strange theory, explained that the young Doug Yancey Funny was traumatized by his parents and their separation. He gave up his dream of a music career and went to medical school. His daydreaming tendencies follow him to adulthood, possibly because it's a sign of a psychiatric disorder. In 1998, the Wild Thornberrys found its way onto Nickelodeon. It ran until 2004, with reruns pressing until 2007. The series followed the hijinks of the Thornberry family, who travel the world. It centers around Nigel, a nature documentarian, and his family, including Elizabeth, also known as Eliza, Deborah or Debbie, Lady Marianne Hunter, Darwin, and Donald. The conspiracy theory focuses on Eliza, who has the strange ability to talk to animals after she encounters a shaman. This character has orange hair and freckles. She has a rather extensive zoological knowledge and a companion monkey. The name Eliza comes from Dr. Dolittle in the film My Fair Lady. Some theorists have come to suggest that she can't actually talk to animals, but is suffering from a diagnosed psychiatric disorder that causes hallucinations. She can't live an entirely normal life, which may be why the family keeps moving from place to place. They know about her hallucinations, but act as though it's not happening because they don't want to destroy her reality. They go along with the delusions, allowing her to believe that they're real. This suggestion was brought to the subreddit Fan Theories when one individual rewatched the show. He'd never thought of such a theory before, but believed it could be plausible. Another Reddit user found a hole in the theory. They suggested that it would be a winner if it weren't for the movie. Eliza's secret about talking to animals is revealed, and she loses her ability to speak the human language. This is when the family becomes genuinely concerned. This concern contradicts the idea that she may be living in a delusion, because if they were used to her disorder, then it wouldn't be such a big deal. But this may be a new development or new symptom of her problem. An alternate theory that still falls within the hallucinations idea is that the shaman had actually given her a type of medicinal herb. According to this idea, Eliza's family is strange and hard to deal with, and her convenient travels took her straight to the witch doctor. This medicinal herb or hallucinogen gives Eliza hallucinations and makes her think that she can talk to animals, but it's simply a side effect of a narcotic. One of the first animals she speaks to is Darwin, the chimpanzee, who she named after someone that she thought Nigel would approve of. This works in the chimp's favor, so he follows her everywhere. He talks her out of some dangerous antics, which theorists believe is Eliza's consciousness speaking to her through Darwin, while trapped in never-ending episodes due to the hallucinogens. According to the conspiracy theories, the girl is either living in a delusion due to a psychiatric disorder, or the entire show is based on sporadic hallucinogenic episodes. The American animated sitcom began in 1997 and ran until 2010, with a reboot in 2023. It takes place in a fictional Texas suburb known as Arlen. We follow the lives of the characters including Hank Hill, a longtime propane salesman, his wife Peggy, a substitute Spanish teacher, and his son Bobby. Hank's friend and neighbor Bill plays a part of a divorced army barber, along with the conspiracy theorist and pest exterminator Dale Gribble. The show caters more to an adult audience as it tackles some adult issues and humor. This conspiracy theory questions Bobby's parentage. The series depicts Hank as the boy's father, but theorists believe that someone else may be the real one, stereotypically the neighbor, Bill. Theorists start their supporting evidence with episode 39, where Hank reveals that he cannot father any children with Peggy. This occurs again in season 3, when he's sent to the doctor after Peggy fails to get pregnant despite various attempts. This is the ultimate piece of evidence that takes Hank out of the question entirely. There's now no doubt that Hank cannot be the father, and the theorists then move on to possible candidates for Bobby's real dad, and all roads lead to Bill. First, Bill and Bobby are very much the same. They're overweight, short, and have incredible appetites. Hank and his alleged son, though, have no similarities at all. Later, though, the son does begin to take an interest in hunting and grilling, just like Hank, but his physical attributes still rule him out as a relative. Peggy also shows apparent resentment for Bill, which may be caused by the stress of thinking or possibly knowing that he's the biological father. In another episode, Bill becomes upset after learning that Dale will pass down a legacy to his son, but he has no one to whom he can pass down his tradition. Or does he? In the same episode, the neighbor decides to give his secret family recipe to the young Bobby, so that the family name will be remembered. Throughout the series, we regularly see the two bonding and becoming good friends, such as in the It Came From the Garage episode, where they enter a boat building competition, which should be more of a father-son bonding experience. If that wasn't enough evidence already, Bill has a crush on Peggy that seems to come back continuously. He often makes bumbling remarks about her and speaks highly about the woman. This is likely because they were engaged in an affair or dated before her marriage to Hank. In the episode Hank's on Board, Bill even admits to this, stating, "I have a confession." Later on, we even learn that Peggy had also been with someone else before Hank, but writes it off as nothing more than a fling. But why did Bill agree to have Hank raise his child? According to theorists, Dale discovered that Bill had been the subject of an experimental project that was called Operation Infinite Walrus, an operation designed to make humans super soldiers. Dale believes that this is why the man has gained so much weight, but it's later revealed that he was given nothing more than the placebo. Or so we thought. The project could have gone horribly wrong, and the government wanted to evade having to pay for medical expenses associated with botching a person's brain. The soldier also displays some low IQ symptoms, leading to the idea that Peggy is concerned about his mental capacity for fatherhood. Perhaps she convinced him to allow Hank to raise Bobby. This next set of conspiracies may completely ruin everyone's favorite robot, WallE. Theories range from robotic cannibalism to who really doomed the planet. In 2008, the computer-animated live-action hybrid WallE was released. It was a romantic comedy drama sci-fi film that followed the life of a robot whose purpose was to clean up the waste-covered Earth for the future. Humans abandoned the planet and were living in outer space. They sent another robot, Eve, to Earth to determine if life remained there. WallE fell in love with her and even followed her to space, changing the destiny of the entirety of humanity. Mr. Bananas took to the fan theories subreddit, titling his post, "WallE, the little robot that destroyed Earth." This protagonist is the only one left of his own kind, bringing us to the first theory of the little robot's cannibalistic tendency, where we see him removing the treads off of a fallen comrade. He didn't even have a second thought about it and would probably regularly take parts from his brethren and store it all in his trailer with other trinkets that he needed to protect from the other robot units. Hundreds of these units have been trying to eliminate all the trash for the last 700 years, yet only one remains. WallE appears to have a more logical brain than his counterparts and can fix himself using spares from those fallen units. This means that either those robots weren't intelligent enough to repair themselves when they malfunctioned, or one particular unit destroyed them all so that he could carry on existing. The lone robot made some progress until he went rogue. He hadn't been doing the best job and regularly refused to crush particular objects. Still, the others had been destroying and compacting everything, including some of the trinkets WallE wanted, hence their sudden demises. This cannibalistic trait allowed the unit to continue the 700-year job, but he still didn't compact and decimate everything that he should have been. The progress required by the 700 years still needed to be met. Of course, there exist some holes in this theory. This one robot would have had to travel everywhere on the planet to get rid of all the other robots, which seems impossible since he travels relatively slowly. But he likely only ended those in his immediate surroundings. If WallE hadn't taken apart his fellow units, there would have been much more progress. And if he hadn't followed Eve onto the Axiom, he may have been able to finish up some of the project, allowing the people to return to the planet. But maybe they were never planning on returning in the first place. Some believe that those living on the Axiom, the spaceship supporting humans until they can recolonize Earth, may be consuming those who have passed away. Evidence for this can be found in the fact that there are no animals on board or plant life, yet the people eat cupcakes in a cup. Theorists point out that no bodies can be seen in the trash disposal area, and there aren't any floating about in space, so where are they? It would make sense for the facility to be recycling human bodies for consumption. Otherwise, given the lack of plants and livestock, they might be faced with starvation. The autopilot, who's simply named Otto, follows the directive A113, which stops him from allowing people to return to Earth. He has no sympathy for the people either, so if they had to consume one another, he wouldn't care, and it would actually help him by auto-filling tasks. This form of recycling prevents the Axiom from returning to Earth for resources. This conspiracy fills in some plot holes and makes some unexplained areas make more sense. The Lion King is an animated musical drama that contains elements of both Hamlet and Macbeth by William Shakespeare. It follows the life of the young lion prince Simba, who's the heir of Pride Rock. But his father Mufasa meets his demise by the paws of his brother Scar. Scar takes over the pride and Simba runs away. He does return years later after much convincing from his old friend Nala. He fights off the hyenas and Scar with the help of a bird advisor, Zazu, Timon the meerkat, and Pumbaa the warthog. There are several conspiracy theories about the movie, such as Scar being a cannibal, Mufasa being the villain, and Zazu being a traitor. But this conspiracy centers around Simba's role in the drought that struck the land, starving the lions and allowing Scar to rule. When the villain took the life of the king and chased away the prince, the land became dry and food became scarce. Close to the end of the film, we see this event's effect on the Pride lands. Dried up carcasses litter the expanse, and the land is covered in dry orange sand instead of the lush green that it once was. For years, we believed that this was caused by Scar becoming king, but theorists provide an alternate theory. Simba caused the drought. All the past kings take their place in the sky, specifically in the clouds. In some scenes, Mufasa even looks down at his son. But what else is associated with the clouds? Rain. When the rightful king fled to the outer parts of the valley, the rain followed him. The cub lived in the tropical jungle for years, along with Timon and Pumbaa. It was enough time for the young lion cub to be able to turn into a fully grown adult lion. Pride Rock went that many years without any rain, leading to a drought. Later on in the movie, the adult Nala finds the long-lost prince, but he refuses to return. But later he changes his mind and heads for the Pride Lands. On his way there, we can see the thunderous clouds rolling behind him. A fight ensues between the lions and Scar when he reaches the area, and a fire even breaks out. The villainous lion is then overpowered by the hyenas, who also decide to rise against him. Simba takes his place on the rock, and not long after, the rain starts to fall. The fires dwindle, and the lush greenery soon returns, and the drought is over. It was not due to the control of Scar or the hyena population explosion, but rather the drought came when the king abandoned his people and took the wisdom of the elders along with him. If Simba hadn't left or stayed in the shadows, then there would have been no drought, and the pride would have been able to have enough sustenance to overpower the evil lion and his hyena army. Scar controlled the food, and the lions only had very few portions of what was available. Food would have been less scarce if there had been more greenery, water, and rain. With that, Simba would have also been able to grow up in his homeland and defeat his evil uncle when he was older. According to theorists, the drought was entirely avoidable, and so was the length and success of Scar's reign. In 2004, an American animated superhero film called The Incredibles was released. It centered around a family of heroes, each with their own power, who fought to save the world. Bob Parr, also known as Mr. Incredible, is a superhero with mega strength, while his wife Helen, or Elastigirl, fights crime using her stretch powers. The two have 3 children together. Jack, the youngest, who turns out to be the most powerful in the family, even though he's just a baby. Violet is the eldest, who can turn herself invisible and create force fields. And then there's the middle child, Dash, who's unnaturally fast. The main villain in The Incredibles is an orange-haired antagonist named Buddy Pine, who uses the pseudonym Syndrome, and also plays an essential part in this conspiracy theory. Syndrome is the son of Mr. Incredible, according to theorists. The theory starts by pointing out that all the villains are created as a direct result of the superheroes. Syndrome in particular seems obsessed with the Parr family, specifically Bob. It's noted that he actually worshipped this hero at one point. Supporting evidence for the allegation that the two are related can be found in the fact that the villain always wants to spend some quality time with Mr. Incredible. It's theorized that Buddy's mother may have dated Bob when he was younger, quite a few years preceding his marriage to Helen, resulting in the orange-haired villain. He's obviously older than any of Bob's children, since Syndrome's prologue is set around 15 years prior to their birth. The two officially met in the superhero's car, and they bore a striking resemblance. The child even named his alter ego Incrediboy, suggesting a role model connection or a father-son relationship. After rejecting the boy, the prologue ends, and Bob starts his new life, and a few years pass by. Bob is likely unaware of this individual being his son, and so Syndrome thinks that if he can get close enough to him, he can break the news. But instead, he's rejected, which devastates him, turning him into a vengeful bad guy. His motivations include wanting to prove himself to the hero, even while despising him, as well as insecurity from his rejection. The villain is also incredibly callous about ending the Parr family, suggesting that he's jealous of his father's willingness to give up his independence for them and not for him. Looking back at the prologue, when Mr. Incredible rejects Buddy, he tells one of the officers to take him home and make sure that his mother knows what he's been doing. While it's initially believed that Bob has no idea that the boy is his son, there's also the possibility that he does know, which may explain why he doesn't say parents or refer to a father figure. Then we come to the various similarities between the two. They both have blue eyes, wide jawlines, and the same nose. Syndrome has a smaller build than Mr. Incredible, but their shapes remain similar. Additionally, they both have some pretty severe anger problems. Many conspiracy theorists have taken the time to sift through the movie to find any possible evidence that Bob and Buddy are father and son. Believers of this theory then suggest that the film be rewatched with this idea in mind. These intriguing theories, which have been circulating since the days of the Flintstones, the pioneering animated sitcom that debuted on ABC in 1960, continue to captivate our imagination. The series, set in the town of Bedrock, chronicles the lives of Fred Flintstone, his wife Wilma, and their neighbors Barney and Betty Rubble. The 4 characters, rather than attempting to create Stone Age versions of modern infrastructure, transportation, tools, and communication methods, may actually be trying to recreate them. According to this conspiracy theory, the Flintstones timeline is actually set in the future. Evidence for this theory, and what initiated it in the first place, revolves around the 1987 movie The Jetsons Meet the Flintstones. The Jetsons are a family in another cartoon series that follows the lives of a futuristic family in the sky. Some suggest that before the arrival of the Jetsons, there was an immense global event that almost destroyed the planet, ultimately forcing the remainder of humanity to move to the upper atmosphere. But some individuals, though, choose to remain on Earth. Another cataclysmic event, according to this conspiracy, sent them hurtling back towards the Stone Age. This could explain the numerous cultural references, pseudo-modern technology, and knowledge of Albert Einstein and the Beatles scattered throughout the series. The conspiracy posits that the Jetsons and the Flintstones coexist on the same timeline. In the crossover movie, Elroy Jetson didn't invent a time machine, but rather a device similar to an elevator or transporter, allowing them to descend to ground level. One alternate theory suggests that the Sky People may even be sending people to the ground as punishment, possibly erasing their memories and placing them back into the Stone Age. But they still have some knowledge of certain things, which is why the ground people are trying to recreate previous inventions. The two families have some similarities, but also many differences. The Jetsons represent concepts like fast moving, laziness, and complacency, whereas the Flintstones are slower, primitive, and ignorant. One Reddit user took another angle on the idea. He suggested that the ground may have been made into a poverty-stricken area for lower-class families, while the sky had been reserved for the upper class to preserve one's social status. To keep both civilizations separate, those in power allowed the Sky People to believe that they exist in a futuristic timeline, which is why there's an abundance of technology at their disposal, allowing Elroy to make his teleporting device. Or did he invent a time machine to return to prehistoric times? Of course, this doesn't explain many aspects of the show, such as the various cultural references and supposedly futuristic knowledge. Adding to supporting evidence of the theory that both shows exist on the same timeline is the fact that the Stone Age family sometimes sends things to the sky, but they never return. This could be because the items are being destroyed by the upper-class skyfolk. There exists only one point of contention for this conspiracy. It's explained that people live in the sky due to the effects of the smog that covers the surface, which could be toxic if inhaled, which means that the device was a time machine since no smog was found when they reached the ground. But this point of contention may even work in favor of the conspiracy theory, because the existence of the poisonous smog could be yet another lie to keep the upper and lower classes separate. Garfield, the round-bodied lasagna-loving orange tabby cat, captivated audiences when Jim Davis released his first Garfield comic strip on the 19th of June in 1978. The comic's rapid popularity led to its adaptation into an animated television series, spawning 3 more programs. Movies were also based on the cat and his family, which included Odie the dog and John Arbuckle, the owner or companion. But a fascinating conspiracy theory has emerged, suggesting that everything in the cartoon is a product of imagination. This intriguing theory has sparked the curiosity of many fans. In the 1978 comic, John opens the first strip with, "Hi, I'm John, I'm a cartoonist." And this is where the fun begins. Ever wonder why Garfield and Odie never fall ill from their coffee consumption? Perhaps it's because they aren't real and are merely John's drawings. Everything that happens is just the next part of the comic strip. But in other media, John isn't making comics. This brings us to the first branch. Odie and Garfield exist, but the cartoons are just their owner's way of portraying what he believes the two pets think of him. Garfield's "oh brother" attitude towards John suggests that John could be a goofy individual, outside of creating comics, and cats are believed to think of us as bigger and dumber cats. Another theory proposes that Garfield has already passed away, and the cartoon drawings are a way of coping for the cartoonist. But the next conspiracy is far more shocking and focuses more on the cat himself. This theory takes us back to the comic strips. In October of 1989, the Three Companions' comedic bliss was shattered when the orange tabby woke up finding himself all alone in the house. The comic strip follows Garfield for the next 5 days, and he realizes that he's been abandoned. In the last segment, the comic focuses on the cat's eye, stating that he had a horrific realization and that he only has one weapon remaining. The next piece stated denial. Right after this, John and Odie suddenly reappear, subsequently leading to the conspiracy theory that he imagined them. This could also explain why he and Odie are able to eat whatever they want in the cartoon as well without falling ill. Supporting evidence for this conspiracy comes in the final frame. Jim Davis writes that the imagination can be a powerful tool and has the ability to tent memories and shape perceptions. According to the conspiracy, the Garfield universe is not about a man, a dog, or a cat, but rather the delusions of a pet that's been left behind to fend for himself in an end-of-the-world place. An alternate theory was that he wasn't abandoned, but that John had actually passed away, and Odie was nowhere to be found and could have possibly run off. It's also thought that the delusions Garfield is supposedly perceiving may be an effect of starvation, since there was no one there to feed it. Our journey into the conspiracy mysteries that plague our screens and social media starts with the popular television series known as The Haunting of Hill House. The first season follows the path of the 1959 novel written by Shirley Jackson. The plot of this mysterious series jumps between two timelines, where we follow the lives of 5 adult siblings whose experiences at Hill House continue to terrorize them into their present days. They're haunted by flashbacks of the events that led to their departure on an evening back in 1992. The 5 siblings in question are Stephen Crane, the oldest son, who later becomes a famous author after having written about his experience at the mansion, which his siblings disapprove of. Shirley, the oldest daughter, owns a mortuary along with her husband. Luke and Eleanor are twins, and Luke is the oldest. They're the 2 youngest family members. The brother struggles with addiction issues in his early life as he tries to push away all that had happened back at the mansion. Eleanor, who's referred to as Nell, never recovered from the activity. Theodora serves as the middle child of the 5 siblings, and in her adult life she becomes a child psychologist. The series finds itself divided by terror and heart-wrenching moments. While the second season is being debated, fans have used this time to conjure up some pretty odd conspiracy theories, some of which may fill in the blank spots that have left us guessing. It starts with the suggestion by a Tumblr user, Caged Bird Song, who believes that the 5 siblings are representations of the 5 stages of grief. Stephen, the skeptic and firstborn, portrays denial. He refuses to believe that any creepy things had gone on in his house back in the 90s, and also never accepted that Nell's passing was directly related to any of the activity. Shirley, who almost manages to repress her frustration, is the embodiment of anger. She became enraged when she found out that her own brother exploited the family's experience in his book. She also had shown signs of anger when trying to deal with the passing of her sibling. Theodora plays the part of the psychiatrist who's looking for an explanation for it all, making her the 3rd stage of grief, bargaining. Fans expressed that she's constantly trying to find the brighter side of things, or is always searching for an alternative outcome. Luke's addiction, paired with his alienation, depicts him as depressed. This is also obvious in the way that he copes with his twin's passing. This only leaves the last stage, acceptance, attributed to Nell and her loving nature. She also returns to her childhood home in hopes that she can be reunited with her mother. Supporting this is the fact that each child is born in the order that one is said to experience the stages of grief. If that supporting evidence wasn't enough to convince you, the theory was actually confirmed by the director, Mike Flanagan himself. He retweeted the article and captioned it as a good catch. Have you ever wondered what the whole story was with the bent neck lady? She's one of the most enigmatic and creepiest entities in the series. According to one Reddit user, Steph Winchester, this entity might be Nell herself, but it's more of an exaggerated representation of her and her passing. Cherry Obliterator points out that during the embalming scene, this character's neck doesn't seem bent at all. While viewers may think that it was fixed during the autopsy, theorists suggest otherwise. They believe that this was done to subvert our expectation that Nell was, in fact, the bent neck lady after all. Then we get to another creepy entity, the bowler hat man, also known as the Tall Man. This is the ghost that is latched onto Luke through the course of the show. He initially saw the bowler hat man when he was a child back at Hill House, but this entity didn't leave him alone and continued to harass him well into his adult life. But some theorists believe that this being is actually confined to the mansion, and that what the adult version of Luke is seeing is nothing more than a figment of his imagination. This came about in the subreddit Haunting of Hill House, when one Reddit user asked why the bowler hat man constantly haunts this character. The bent neck lady only appears to Nell a few times, sporadically, but with her twin it seems a bit different. Astasia appeared to have the answer for this using their own fan theory. The Tall Man is actually William Hill, according to them. He only appears at the house in search of his hat. When heading over to Nell's bed, he pauses out of mere curiosity and returns sometime later to have a look underneath Luke's bed. The theorists believe that this entity actually had no interest in the children, but was actually just trying to retrieve his hat. But this encounter traumatizes the young Luke. It continues to affect him psychologically later on, which means that the entity he's seeing isn't actually there, but is a manifestation of his trauma from his initial encounter with the tall man. Then we get to one of the most common conspiracy theories on TV, which involves precisely 7 characters, the 7 sins that are mentioned in some religions. 2 of the characters that have yet to be mentioned are the children's parents, Olivia and Hugh. Luke is the first to be thrown under the bus with this one, gluttony. His addiction issue paints him as a glutton who has the constant need to consume more and more. Theodora represents lust, which is attributed to the scene where she's found with Kevin, Shirley's husband. As you may have guessed, Stephen is the embodiment of greed. This has been accredited to the fact that he profits off of the tragedy that his family experienced. Wrath is Olivia, who takes her aggression out on the youngsters by yelling at them or punishing them unnecessarily. Hugh depicts the sin of pride, where he never admits faults relating to the household and its members. Envy can be found in Shirley, who often criticizes her family for what they do and do not have. Along with this is the fact that this character has green eyes, the color of jealousy. Last, we have Sloth, and again we're left with Nell, who's never seen working, and most of her story is centered around her being asleep. One last theory, which also found its way onto Reddit by Cyber Toaster, was that the mold that covers the house is the true source of the evil that lurks there. House MD is a fan-favorite American television medical drama. It ran for exactly 8 seasons from 2004 to 2012, following the life and shenanigans of Dr. Gregory House. House is characterized as a pain medication-dependent individual who indulges in unconventional practices, but he's important to the Princeton Plainborough Teaching Hospital due to the fact that he's a medical genius. This doctor leads a diagnostics team who are given rare and unexplained medical cases. This character often clashes with other physicians, some of which are on his team. House's disregard for hospital rules often gets him into conflicts with his boss and possible love interest Lisa Cuddy. His only true friend is the head of the Department of Oncology, Dr. James Wilson. While the show is clear-cut with a hint of drama that grows in later seasons, it's also subject to some conspiracy theories. These theories mainly relate to the series finale. Ben Morris took to the show's subreddit with an interesting theory. In this episode, a building is in the midst of collapse when a burning beam falls on our beloved main character. There's no way he could make it out, but he did. He faked succumbing to the collapsing building so that he could be with his best friend, Wilson. But Ben Morris thinks that he really did meet his demise. He explains that the beam fell right on top of him and knocked him down, and shortly afterward the whole building explodes. He points to the fact that House had been hallucinating during this episode. When he and Wilson ride off on their motorbikes, a song starts playing. And interestingly, it's the same song that Amber had sung on 2 occasions during his hallucinations that later had him end up in a psychiatric hospital. Was the finale just House's final hallucination before succumbing to his injuries? This seems to be what some fans are thinking. The character did in fact spend most of this episode hallucinating, and the idea that he did meet his demise seems plausible, since it would be tough to try and escape a burning building. This conspiracy theory also made way for an alternative, where the final scene actually plays out in Wilson's head. Theorists explain that he's grief-driven over the loss of his best friend, and imagine that the two rode off to spend his final year together. This is supported by the idea that Wilson doesn't find out that House is still alive until his funeral is taking place. It didn't seem as though any of the other attendees were noticing the phone's tone aside from the oncologist. They only seemed to react to him vocalizing his annoyance over his phone making a noise. Wilson's health is deteriorating. He wasn't given much longer to live, and paired with the loss of his best friend, his descent into madness would not be unlikely. Then we come to the more supported conspiracy theory. This conspiracy posits that House euthanized his friend. If it wasn't already obvious, the head of oncology had been diagnosed with a terminal illness leading up to the finale. It was also in this season that House would be looking at prison time, and so he ultimately fakes his own demise so that he can reunite with his friend and help him pass along peacefully. In Season 8, the oncologist explains that he doesn't want his passing to be drawn out, and he doesn't want to spend the remaining time he has in and out of the hospital. And who better to grant this wish than the self-centered and unconventional diagnostician? Evidence for this theory is that both of these characters express support for euthanizing the terminally ill. In one of the later seasons, Wilson was prepared to give a speech stating precisely this. He watches his patients, who will never recover, lying in those hospital beds day in and day out, and wants to insert that their suffering should end quicker. It was in that season that he wanted to present the idea of euthanasia for humans. House was in full support of this and stole his friend's speech and delivered it under a pseudonym in an attempt to save both of their careers. This theory entertains the idea that Wilson wanted House to end his suffering before he got to the point of being bedridden. This character is the only one that the protagonist cares about. It would make sense that he wouldn't want him to suffer. After some digging, theorists managed to find a whole history of House's assisted passings, either ones that he knew of or ones that he played a hand in. It went as far back as Season 3, when Cameron uncharacteristically helps Ezra Powell, a terminally ill patient, see the light. She's then praised and comforted by House. 4 episodes later, a heart transplant is needed for one of the patients, and who better to donate a heart than the father of the patient himself? House assisted in this case as well. Season 6 sees yet another incident when the unorthodox medical diagnostician increases the morphine on yet another terminal patient. Finally, in Season 7, he also promises that he'll help 13 when her Huntington's disease causes further deterioration. So it seems that the Doctor has quite the history of performing such acts, which allows this conspiracy to gain some ground. Another interesting theory places the events of House's prison time as the events that occurred after the building collapsed, after Wilson's passing. After faking his demise, he spent the next few months with his friend, and after that he decided to turn himself in. Viewers believe that his redemption only begins when his friend is gone. During this time, it's thought that he would come clean about how he faked the event and let his colleagues know that he's still alive. Notably, he tells 13 since we already know of the promise he made to her, which we'd like to think he upholds. After serving his sentence, according to believers of this theory, House will become an at-home diagnostician who will consult with other medics in need of a differential. Adventure Time is a well-known animated television series that follows the life of a boy named Finn and Jake, a magical shape-shifting dog. The two go on rather odd adventures together in the land of Oo. 2 spin-offs have been released and aired sporadically: Adventure Time Distant Lands and Adventure Time Fiona and Cake. While the land of Oo has many different characters to meet there are a few that occur most frequently. The obvious are the 2 best friends and main characters Finn and Jake. Finn is the protagonist, who is adopted by Jake's parents, 2 anthropomorphic dogs. Jake has unique stretching abilities that allow him to shapeshift into anything he desires. Princess Bubblegum, the incarnation of the Candy Elemental, watches over the Candy Kingdom. She was formed as part of a blob hive mind made out of pink gum known as Mother Gum. She too serves as one of the leading characters and also embarks on a romantic journey with Marcellin, the vampire. Marcellin is another main protagonist who doesn't need bodily fluids to survive, but actually just needs to drink the color red. Another major character is the Ice King, the over-the-top villain who always tries to kidnap the princess. It's safe to say that this series is downright odd, so it comes as no shock that this is the center of various conspiracy theories. It all begins with Princess Bubblegum. Theorists believe that this pink-haired blob is a sociopath, and all the telltale signs are prevalent. Theorists point out that she appears kind and calm on the outside, but harbors some darkness within, which is evident in her cruelty. She also has no problem telling lies, which she does all the time, especially to her friends. One such example is in the episode called The Other Tarts, where she lies about a traumatic and terrifying event, simply because she thinks that the other 2 main characters are going to eat the royal tarts. Bubblegum also lacks empathy, which can be seen in the episode Another 5 Short Graybles. She tells Cinnamon Bun that she's not allowed to sleep with a nightlight simply because she thinks she's too old for it. Theorists also point to the fact that she isolates herself and often wants to be alone. In the Suitor episode, she stays in her laboratory for weeks on end, and when she's interrupted by Peppermint Butler, she becomes enraged. The last trait the believers have dug out is that, like many sociopaths, Bubblegum is highly academic and intelligent. Strangely, we find ourselves all the way in the Cold War, where Miss Azur, a Reddit user, suggested that the whole series was a basic plot for one massive historical event. She points out that every Adventure Time fan knows that the plot is happening around 1,000 years after an event known as the Great Mushroom War. This is alleged to have been fought with nuclear weapons, which resulted in the odd creatures we find in the land of Oo. Some fans believe that the series is an alternate ending to the Cold War, due to the references it makes to Cheers. Particularly in the Simon and Marcy episode, it seems that the show is taking place in the late 80s or early 90s. While this Reddit user agrees with the theory to some degree, she believes that it actually goes much deeper and has taken the time to dissect every aspect of the series, making it a reference to the Cold War era. It begins with the Ice King, who theorists believe would represent the USSR. Supporting evidence for this can be found in the place he lives, a land of ice and snow. His crown may also be a tip-off to this idea, as it seems to be the representation of a communist or socialist government in the USSR. As many know, the Ice King's real name is Simon, and prior to placing the crown on his head, he was a friendly individual. This particular aspect can be found in the fact that prior to the Bolshevik Revolution, Russia had been on better terms with Western countries, including the United States. Another supporting aspect of this notion is the Ice King's penguins. He has many of them who serve as his minions, which may be a representation of the Russian inhabitants during this era. Furthermore, each penguin is named Gunter, or a variation of the name. This is a parallel to the ideas of communism, where everyone is seen as an equal and acts as one entity. One more thing that theorists have noticed about this character is that he's always trying to kidnap the princesses of the land and force them to marry him. And this, according to theorists, mirrors the way in which the USSR would take countries hostage and force them to become part of them. Then we move to one such princess, Bubblegum, who sporadically speaks German throughout the series. Perhaps this is because she's the representation of East Germany, which is associated with the Iron Curtain. They also find themselves as part of the USSR's Become One policy. It's pointed out that the Ice King put a whole lot of effort into trying to kidnap this princess, much like how the USSR sported an unrelenting grip on East Germany. Finn, the younger character in the show, tries to solve everyone's problems and showcases a hero complex which makes him the United States. America is a lot younger than the rest of the countries involved in this. This country also showed an attitude of heroism and the need to protect the world from communism. And then we get a more factually correct and less dark conspiracy about the show, as some suggest that it's nothing more than a game of Dungeons and Dragons. According to one Reddit user, Avaron, this series is a game of D&D played by a father and son, Jake and Finn. Jake, in this theory, is the dungeon master and is using this game as a way of teaching his kid about morality. Other fans jumped onto theory too, with some saying that Jake gets his Korean girlfriend to join in on the fun, or another older relative whose character is Princess Bubblegum. She previously played with Jake, making use of her old character with a servant army, castle, and science. Others believe, though, that Princess Bubblegum and Marcellin are nothing more than NPCs that are based on the same girl, Finn's babysitter. The princess acts as an idealized version of the babysitter who's caring and in charge, whereas Marcellin is the aspect of the same person in how they act when they're not on duty. The original theorist explains that the more the story progresses, the darker and more intricate it becomes. This allows believers to see the events as the decisions that their real-world counterparts are making in the role-playing game. Supporting this theory of the game being lessons taught by a father is the episode about Finn's fear of going into the ocean. Jake, the father, helps him overcome this by treating it as a way to gain experience in the game. But this is merely a children's show, making most of the conspiracies perhaps a little far-fetched. But Pendleton Ward, the animator and screenwriter, has stated that the game strongly inspires the show and that many of the stories are written by his and his head writer's desire to play D&D, but can't because they're stuck at work. The Mentalist, an American crime series, became a favorite among crime show enthusiasts, who followed along as a particular individual tried to uncover the identity of the show's antagonist, Red John. Patrick Jane, the show's main protagonist, played a consultant to the California Bureau of Investigation. He made use of his powers of observation, his intellect, and his mischievous talents to solve various crimes while also trying to find a homicidal maniac known as Red John. After taunting the individual on live TV, Red John set out to take the lives of Jane's daughter and wife. The inspiration behind this antagonist was yet another fictional character, Jack of all trades. Working alongside the psychic detective is Teresa Lisbon, who finds her plans constantly contradicted by Jane. She also becomes one of the characters who suffers various injuries during the Red John investigation. Grace Van Pelt offers her services to the CBI as well, alongside Kimball Cho and Wayne Rigsby, who she later marries. Another character who appears in the pilot as an expert on Red John is Brett Partridge, a forensic investigator working for the CBI. This series is full of mystery and intrigue, so it comes as no surprise that it's the center of theories produced by fans and viewers. The conspiracy theories, like many, begin on Reddit, a subreddit dedicated to the series, and not surprisingly, they all center around our antagonist. One fan asked on this platform what everyone's thoughts are on the identity of Red John. Their responses, of course, came way before the real man was revealed. It begins with the protagonist himself. One Reddit user pointed to the idea that Jane was Red John, referring to the notion that Jane is the female version of Red John, and an old nickname for Patrick is Pink, which is debated to be a shade of red. This makes Patrick Jane a variation, sidekick, or the maniac himself. Another fan has an alternative theory, indicating that Jane has an evil twin, which is why the antagonist and protagonist have the same voice. But who else's voice sounds similar to Red John's? Well, Brett Partridge, the investigator obsessed with this entity, and who knows pretty much everything there is to know about him. What if it's someone else that knows Jane, someone a lot closer to home? One theorist pointed at a psychic investigator's father and suggested that others have been thinking the same thing. Many believe that the man behind the red, smiley face was on Lisbon's team, perhaps Rigsby or Van Pelt, but these theories didn't pan out. Jane also had a list of 7 suspects as to who he believed his enemy was. They were Gail Bertram, the director of law enforcement, Brett Stiles, the leader of the Visualize cult, Ray Hafner, the CBI senior agent who's also a part of this cult, Reed Smith, an FBI agent, Robert Kirkland, who serves as an agent on the Red John case, Sheriff McAllister, the Napa County Sheriff, and lastly, Brett Partridge. One theorist took the time to dissect it all, explaining all the facts involved. It starts with the fact that Red John is one who does not like the protagonist one bit, and vice versa. This ultimately rules Jane out as the maniac. This also rules out the CBI team, since he gets along with all of them. Another possible candidate was JJ LaRoche, who certainly seemed like a suspicious character. But he's ruled out as well, since Jane is very trusting of him. Screenwriter and film producer Bruno Heller also refers to Red John as he or him, which subsequently rules out Van Pelt, Lisbon, and the new boss, Hightower. The following fact that this conspiracy theory produces is that Red John is someone that Jane knows. It's posited that 7 people that Jane lists as suspects are actually the disciples or accomplices of Red John, such as Bob Kirkland, who's said to be a disciple, who got an image of the list that Jane had in his room to assist his enemy. He also took the life of another disciple. Gail Bertram is able to figure out what's happening within the CBI, making him another possible candidate, according to the suggestion. Another is Ray Hafner, the man who painted the infamous smiley face symbol in the barn that's run by the cult that he's associated with. Reed Smith, according to this conspiracy, is yet another candidate for Red John. The reason for this idea is that he doesn't appear a whole lot in the series, and our protagonist is often fooling him. But since he doesn't make many appearances, he may be demoted to a disciple or accomplice. Then we get to the sheriff, McAllister, who Jane believes is another possible suspect for Red John. But the theorist expects the true master to be around the same age as Jane, but due to his character's level of secrecy, he's left as a Red John candidate. Partridge, despite being the suspect of many fans, is too unsophisticated and mistakes two homicide cases for Red John victims when they're not. This puts him as a disciple more than anything else. The highest ranking possibility is Brett Stiles, the cult leader, who I'm sure was most of our guesses. He's a master mind manipulator and fits the profile. His psychic abilities may even be better than Jane's. He's able to get his cult members to follow his orders, and has shown these abilities in 2 other instances. At one point, the protagonist is placed under a trance by the visualized leader, and is made to reveal some secrets, something that Red John would have likely attempted. This is how Stiles figures out Jane's secret, and he remains at the top of many theorists' suspect lists. After some careful deliberation, the theorists re-ranked the possible suspects, starting with Brett Stiles, for the reasons mentioned previously. Brett Partridge fits the profile but seems too unorganized to be Red John, according to some. Robert Kirkland is also thought to fit the profile. He produced Dried Cherry, and the recurrent title word is cherry, which is found in Devil's Cherry, Cherry Picked, and Black Cherry. There also appears to be a whole lot of evidence surrounding Virgil Manelli, the suspicious character. CBI Ron is always in the background, and he's listed as a high-ranking candidate, along with a middle suspect, Ellis Mars, who acts like Jane and pretends to be a psychic. Then there's the Red Sweater Man, who'd been seen sitting beside another character, Timothy Carter, and staring at Jane. Ranked as the lowest suspects are Tolman Bunting, Patrick Jane, and his father. Heller was clever with this series and always made it certain that the viewers thought Red John was someone else entirely, while it was someone unexpected and for many a bit disappointing. Nonetheless, these conspiracy theories produced by fans make for a compelling argument and shine light on who we really wanted the main antagonist to be. The Vampire Diaries, the American supernatural fantasy horror drama, follows the life of teenage Elena Gilbert, who falls for 2 brothers, Stefan and Damon Salvador, who are also vampires. By doing this, Elena draws her friends into the supernatural world that takes place in Mystic Falls, which is full of vampires, werewolves, and witches. The girl places all of her friends' and relatives' lives at risk, as well as her own, despite her selfless nature. In this series, we meet a variety of characters like Elena's brother, Jeremy, who becomes a vampire hunter, along with Alaric Saltzman, the high school history teacher. Bonnie Bennett, who comes from a line of witches, finds herself to be the most unfortunate character who suffers tremendous loss at the hands of her friend. Another friend who almost loses everything is Carolyn Forbes, who later becomes a vampire, all thanks to Damon's involvement in the girls' lives. While there are many more characters to meet, we must embark on our conspiracy theory journey. This theory refers to the episode where Elena is placed into a magically induced coma by Kai, the siphoner vampire hybrid. It was speculated that she would awake from this coma with no recollection of what happened, and some have even suggested that she won't remember anything about the supernatural world. The only way that the girl can be woken is if Bonnie meets her demise. Still, fans make their theory a plausible one by suggesting an alternative that wakes Elena up and saves Bonnie. The main protagonist would have to sacrifice her memories. This next suggestion may have been something that many already guessed at. Damon was responsible for the fate of Elena's mother and father. As we know, Elena and Jeremy are orphans and are placed under the care of their aunt following a car accident. Theorists believe that Damon pushed the car off the bridge, possibly in a fit of rage, or as a means of tormenting his brother, the good-natured vampire who preys only on animals. The less well-natured brother is known for his outbursts, making this a plausible theory. Evidence for this idea is that he was in Mystic Falls at the time that the accident took place, and he and Elena met that very evening, but she wouldn't remember this since she was compelled to forget. But this would have placed a whole lot of suffering back onto our protagonist, and put an end to the possibility that these 2 characters ended up together. Another strange theory brings in Klaus Michelson. Klaus is a part of the original vampire family who makes a torturous appearance in the show, and later stars in their very own spin-off called The Originals. This fan theory suggests that the big bad vampire-werewolf hybrid was actually the famous artist Vincent van Gogh. Galactic Professor sponsored this conspiracy on the fan theories subreddit. They'd spotted a painting of sunflowers that Klaus had painted, which made this theorist think of the sunflowers that Van Gogh painted. Given Klaus's knack for art, along with the bit of resemblance we see between the two, this theory may be likely. According to the conspiracy, Klaus, the famous painter, had been living in France, painting flowers until his father found him. And so he had to fake the passing of his human alter ego and take off. But what about the missing ear? Well, it would have grown back, considering the character's supernatural abilities. Another postulated ending for Elena's awakening places her as one of the villains, Catherine. Season 8 uncovers a creature of sorts lurking in the vault, which uses Elena's voice. Who sounds like Elena? Catherine. While skeptics say that the creature was trying to trick them, others believe that the creature was our protagonist, who is embodied by one of our initial villains. While Damon is believed to have been the cause of the accident that took place with the Gilberts, there's another conspiracy relating to that evening. A Reddit user named Gilbert Salvatore took to the Vampire Diaries subreddit with a curious suggestion. That evening, Damon compelled Elena to forget ever meeting him. He also wanted her to chase what she wanted in life, and what she wanted was a life of adventure and love. This theorist wonders if this is the reason that she breaks up with her boyfriend, Matt, and why she falls for Stefan. She was practically glued to him until she became a vampire and the compulsion wore off. Then we come to the theory about the replicas, a theory that relates to Tadia. She's the counterpart who was around during the time of Michelson's human era. Amara was the first of the Petrova doppelgangers, followed by Tatia, Catherine, and Elena. According to the lore, doppelgangers are attracted to other doppelgangers, and as we find out, Tadia was a widow who lost her husband. Elena, a doppelganger, is attracted to Stefan, which means that she must also be a doppelganger. It's for this reason that it's likely that a Stefan lookalike was alive during Tadia's time. The theorist, a Reddit user, believes that Silas, one of the lookalikes, was with Amara. Stefan was intended to be with Catherine, while another doppelganger, Tom Avery, was destined for Elena. This leaves Tatia without a partner, but it must have been someone who looked a whole lot like this well-natured vampire, another replica. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.